In the quiet studios of Tokyo, a director who once dreamed of writing fantasy novels was preparing to redefine the genre he had spent a decade perfecting. Hidetaka Miyazaki, the architect of Demon's Souls, Dark Souls, and Bloodborne, believed his next world demanded something larger than himself, so he wrote a letter to George R.R. Martin, to the man whose tales of fallen kings and broken bloodlines had shaped a generation of fantasy. What followed was an unprecedented collaboration. Martin would craft the mythology, a deep ancient history of demigods, shattered crowns, and a world undone long before the player ever sets foot in it. Miyazaki would take those bones and build the present. The ruined kingdoms, the haunted castles, the silent vistas where the wind carries the weight of forgotten gods. FromSoftware, the studio that had built its reputation on punishing precision, would turn its hand to something it had never truly attempted, a vast, seamless open world. The team was small by AAA standards. Their ambition was not, they were chasing a feeling, the feeling of stepping off a road and into legend. This is the story of how that feeling became Elden Ring, a game born of two visionaries, refined by hundreds of hands, and delivered to a world that did not yet know how badly it wanted it. Before Elden Ring, there was a lineage. Demon's Souls in 2009 was a quiet release, a cult oddity that taught players a strange and uncomfortable lesson. That failure was not the opposite of progress, but its truest form. Then came Dark Souls, and with it, a phenomenon. A trilogy that built worlds you could feel in the soles of your feet. Lordran, Drangleic, Lothric, each one a cathedral of ruin, alive with patient menace. Bloodborne sharpened the formula in cosmic blood. Sekiro stripped it down to steel and breath. Through every release, FromSoftware refined a single defining promise: that difficulty, when paired with fairness, becomes a language. A way of speaking to the player that no cutscene or quest marker ever could. This was the legacy Elden Ring inherited. A reputation built on suffering, yes, but also on triumph. On the unspeakable joy of a boss finally falling after the 40th attempt. This was the foundation Miyazaki carried with him into the lands between. Not pain for its own sake, but the discipline that pain demands. The kind of game design that trusts the player to rise. The Lands Between is not a map, it is a memory of one. From the windswept plains of Limgrave to the golden sea of Altus, from the rotting mires of Caelid to the snow-buried ruins of the mountaintops of the giants, every region feels carved by a different hand of history. There are no quest markers floating above mountaintops, no glowing arrows pointing the way. There is only the world, and the question of what lies past the next ridge. Verticality is everywhere. Beneath your feet sprawl the Siofra and Nokron, vast subterranean kingdoms with their own skies, their own forgotten civilizations. Above you loom castles the size of small cities, each ruled by a demigod whose tragedy is written into the stones. To play Elden Ring is to wander, to stop mid-stride because the light has hit a distant tower in just the right way, to see something on the horizon and walk toward it for 10 minutes, knowing nothing of what waits there. This is the open world reimagined, not as a checklist, but as a promise. You are tarnished, exiled long ago, stripped of grace, and now, for reasons you do not yet understand, guided back to the lands between by a golden light only you can see. The Elden Ring has shattered. Queen Marika is gone. Her demigod children have torn each other apart in a war over the runes that fell from the broken hole. The Erdtree, once the symbol of order, now burns with secrets. Your task, on its surface, is simple. Claim the runes, mend the ring, become Elden Lord. But Elden Ring does not tell you this story in cutscenes. It tells it in item descriptions. in the architecture of a tomb, in the placement of a corpse beside a half-buried sword. The lore reveals itself slowly, in fragments, demanding the player become an archaeologist of meaning. There is no chosen one here, no cosmic mandate of righteousness. There is only a dying world and a wanderer with the will to act. Grace, in this story, is not given, it is reclaimed. And by the time you understand what you are truly fighting for, the world will already have changed you. Combat in Elden Ring is a conversation. Every weapon speaks a different dialect. A colossal sword swings with the gravity of intention. Slow, devastating, unforgiving of misreads. A dagger speaks in whispers. Short, fast, demanding you stand inside the danger. Between them lies an ocean of possibility. Great swords, spears, whips, curved swords, fists, reapers, bows, staves that channel sorcery, seals that channel faith. And atop this arsenal sits the system that changed everything, ashes of war. With them, any weapon can be reshaped. A katana can become a lightning lance. A halberd can become a quick-step blade. The result is a combat sandbox of staggering depth. There is jumping now, true jumping. And with it, a new vertical layer of pressure and counter. There are stance breaks, charged heavy attacks, guard counters, and parries that demand frame-perfect timing. Yet for all its complexity, the rhythm beneath it remains the one FromSoftware mastered 15 years ago. Read your opponent, commit to your action, accept the consequences. Mastery in Elden Ring is not about reflexes alone. It is about patience, about listening to the rhythm of a fight until you no longer hear it. You simply move with it. The lore of Elden Ring did not begin with the game, it began with George R.R. Martin's pen. Long before the player draws their first sword, a story has already happened. A primeval current of stars and serpents and outer gods reached into the world, and from it the greater will sent a golden seed, the Erdtree, and with it the Elden Ring itself. Marika ascended. Her demigod children were born of unions both blessed and forbidden. Godric the Grafted, Radahn, conqueror of the stars, Malenia, blade of Miquella, undefeated and undying, Mohg, lord of blood, Rykard, the serpent-fed. Each carries a fragment of a tragedy older than them. Beneath this royal pageantry lies something stranger, the outer gods, distant entities whose influence shaped every faith and curse in the lands between. The frenzied flame, the formless mother, the dark moon. Forces that do not bargain, forces that remember. The brilliance of the lore is that almost none of it is told to you. It is buried in armor descriptions, in the geometry of a chapel, in the things a dying knight whispers before they fall. To understand Elden Ring is to read the world like a manuscript, and to discover that the manuscript has been bleeding through the margins all along. The bosses of Elden Ring are not encounters, they are punctuation. Margit the Fell Omen waits at the threshold of the world, a deliberate wall, a teacher disguised as a tyrant. Beyond him, Godric raises his grafted, monstrous arm in a throne room of impaled trophies. Starscourge Radahn rides under a falling sky in a battle so vast it feels mythological, a scene that became one of gaming's most discussed spectacles. Then there is Malenia, blade of Miquella, undefeated, the fight that humbled an entire generation of veterans. Her waterfowl dance entered the cultural lexicon as shorthand for impossible mastery. Beneath the demigods, hundreds of lesser bosses populate the world, dragons, knights, beasts, abominations, each animated with a craftsmanship that betrays just how much love went into them. Camera, music, choreography, and theme converge until even the smallest fight feels staged for the player alone. FromSoftware understood something that few studios truly grasp, that a boss is not an obstacle. A boss is a story told in 2 minutes of pressure and silence. And by the end of Elden Ring, you will carry these stories with you longer than you expect. A great open world is not measured by its size. It is measured by what happens when you stop walking. In Elden Ring, the world breathes around you. NPCs follow quest lines that wind across continents, each one self-directed, each one easy to miss, and each one richer for the discovery. Ranni the Witch, Blade the Half-Wolf, Millicent, Patches. Their stories play out in fragments at scattered sites of grace, asking only that you remember where you saw them last. Above ground, the day-night cycle reshapes encounters. Certain bosses appear only in moonlight. Caravans drift across roads at dusk. Below, an entire underworld waits. Siofra River, Ainsel, Nokron, Nokstella. Places vast enough to feel like games of their own. Catacombs, heroes' graves, Evergale prisons. Hundreds of optional dungeons reward the simple instinct of curiosity. Nothing is gated by a level. Almost everything is gated only by your willingness to risk. This is what makes the lands between feel alive. Not its scale, but its conviction that the player is not the center of it. The world will continue with or without you. It is your privilege to find the parts that wish to be found. There is no correct way to play Elden Ring, there is only your way. A pure strength build smashes through plate and bone with colossal weapons. A dexterity build dances on the edge of a curved sword. Faith builders channel lightning, fire, and golden judgment. Intelligence mages bend gravity, summon glintstone, and carve constellations across enemies. Arcane builds embrace the grotesque. Bleed, rot, dragon communion. Each archetype is not a class but a starting point. Respecting is permitted, encouraged, and often necessary. The build is not who you are, it is who you are this week. Beyond stats lie the layers that define mastery. Talismans, equipped 4 at a time, scoped subtle but decisive bonuses. Spirit ashes, summonable allies, turn the loneliest fights into duets. The Mimic Tear, the Black Knife Tish, the Banished Knight, Lutel, each becomes a companion in their own right. Then come the weapon arts, the consumables, the crafted bolts and pots and bewitching branches. The system is dauntingly deep, and yet it never punishes experimentation. There is a freedom here that shocks players coming from the rigid build trees of older RPGs. You can be many things in Elden Ring. You can be them all in a single playthrough. The only true commitment the game asks of you is your curiosity. For all its medieval weight, Elden Ring is a feat of modern engineering. FromSoftware's in-house engine, long refined across the Souls series, was here pushed into territory it had never been asked to occupy. A continuous, seamless open world with no loading screens between regions, no invisible gates, no immersion-breaking transitions. From a peak in the mountaintops, you can see in unbroken geometry the cliffs of Liurnia far below. The art direction is a study in restraint. The palette favors muted golds, ash grays, and deep cathedral blues, colors that let the rare bursts of crimson, scarlet rot, and frenzied flame land like gunshots. Yamagata Masamichi and his concept team designed an aesthetic that feels timeless because it borrows from no one specific era of fantasy, only from the dream of one. The score, composed by a team led by Tsukasa Saito, Shoei Miyazawa, and others, swells only at the moments that matter. Choirs at boss thresholds, silence on long roads, wind, distant bells, rain. The audio design understands that absence is its own instrument. Performance was not without struggle. Launch day stutters on PC ignited weeks of discourse. Patches arrived steadily. The team did not retreat into silence. They listened, fixed, and shipped. By the time Shadow of the Erdtree expanded the game 2 years later, Elden Ring had become not just a technical achievement but a maintained one, a living product refined in plain sight. Beneath the mythology, beneath the swordplay, sits a piece of software built with extraordinary discipline. A world this large should not feel this handcrafted, and yet somehow every corner of it does. When Elden Ring released on February 25, 2022, it did not trickle into the cultural conversation. It detonated inside it. 25 million copies sold within a year. Game of the Year at every major ceremony. The Game Awards, BAFTA, GDC, DICE, a 96 on Metacritic, streams that broke records, Twitch chats that turned "Let me solo her" into folklore. Millennia became a noun. Maidenless became a taunt. Players who had never touched a Souls game found themselves 500 hours deep in lore videos, build guides, and boss rush challenge runs. The community organized itself into a quiet, unprecedented machine. Wikis, map databases, Discord servers dedicated to single quest lines. The player base did not just consume Elden Ring, it documented it. And then, in June 2024, came Shadow of the Erdtree, the largest expansion FromSoftware had ever produced. A new realm, a new demigod, a new combat layer of Skagitry blessings. It debuted to acclaim that nearly matched the base game itself and reignited the entire community a second time. Elden Ring did not just win awards, it became one of the defining cultural artifacts of its decade, a benchmark by which open-world ambition would be measured for years to come. What is it about Elden Ring that endures? It is not the difficulty. Plenty of games are hard. It is not the scale. Plenty of games are large. It is not even the lore, dense and beautiful as it is. What endures is the conviction. Every choice in this game, every wandering road, every silent vista, every hidden tomb, every bloody encounter, feels made. Made by someone, considered by someone, refined by someone. In an era when so many games are assembled, Elden Ring was crafted. You feel it in the way Margit teaches you to read a tell, in the way a piece of armor from a dead knight tells you, in 3 sentences, the entire tragedy of his order, in the way the sky over Caelid, Scarlet, and Impossible never lets you forget what was lost. FromSoftware did not just deliver a game, they delivered a manifesto, that scale and craftsmanship are not opposites, that a world can be vast and still hand-built, that a story can be silent and still devastating, that difficulty, properly tuned, becomes a form of love. Elden Ring will be studied, it will be imitated, it will be cited as the moment the open world found a soul again. And long after the patches stop and the servers darken, players will still gather around its memory, raising their flask of crimson, and whisper the same simple truth. This was a mastercraft. May we yet earn the chance to build another.